above all powers, above all kings.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dave Stidham, and thank you for being part of Moments in His Word. According to the latest statistics by the United Nations, in 2019, the world population is going to reach 7.7 billion people. Man, that's a lot of people. Matter of fact, if we did simple calculations, we could figure out that if we could get those 7.7 billion people to stand together in a straight line, holding hands, that would be enough people to encircle the world almost 300 times. I know I'm taking some liberties in these calculations, thinking that everybody's the same size and that we could stand on water and elevation changes wouldn't matter. But 7.7 billion people. With these numbers, it's easy to get the sense that you and I, as individuals, well, we just become insignificant. But the truth of the matter is there's considerable power in the power of one. The power of one stands out in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 4 through 6. It says, "There is one body and one spirit, just also as you were called in one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all." The most significant word in that scripture is one. But the one that I want to address today is the one that's the most personal. The one that's me and the one that's you. We have the power, each of us, to make a difference. I believe change, and I believe true change, begins with me, and that change also begins with you. God has placed the power to cause change in this world in our hands. It reminds me of a story about a beach covered with starfish. And they had washed upon the shore after the storm. And one little boy was standing at the water's edge, and he would pick up a starfish and he would throw it back in the water. And the old man was watching him, and this boy would do it one after the next. Pick up a starfish, throw it back in the water. Well, there was hundreds of starfish all over the beach. And the beach went for miles and miles. And the old man came up to the old man and said, "Son, there's miles of beach, and you're not making one bit of difference. Why are you doing this?" And while the boy was listening to him, he reaches down, picks up another starfish, and throws it back into the surf. And then the boy said, "Sir, all I know, it made a difference to that one. You and I may not change the world, but we can change someone's world, and while doing that, we may change our own." I truly believe that. Edward Everett Hale, the grandnephew of the famous Nathan Hale, wrote, "I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And what I can do, I ought to do. And what I ought to do, by the grace of God, I shall do." When we see the magnitude of all the things in this world that needs to be done, physically, socially, and certainly spiritually, it seems too much, and this idea that I am too insignificant to make a difference overwhelms us. But in God's plan, it's not the mere ability that matters, it's one's availability. In John chapter 6, verses 6 through 13, we find an account of Jesus feeding the 5,000. This is one of three miracles that each one of the writers of the gospel record in their gospel. The power of one and the power of the one is illustrated in this story. The power of one I think about is the mother who fixed the lunch, or the boy that carried the lunch, or the boy that decided, "I will go to where Jesus is." See, all he was carrying was 5 loaves and 2 fish, a poor man's lunch. But this lunch becomes an integral part of the story. When the crowd becomes hungry, Christ, the power of the one, takes this small lunch for an individual boy and feeds 5,000. And after he feeds the 5,000, there was 12 baskets full left over. What I find most interesting in this lesson Christ used was the insignificant, the boy's lunch, combining with the power of God to show His majesty over the natural world, to the 5,000 that was present that day. When we allow ourselves to be used by God for His purpose, the insignificant becomes world-changing, and we can even show the majesty of God in our actions. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, 27 and following, it says, "But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring nothing things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God." See, I love this scripture. I can live up to this scripture. It tells me I don't have to be wise. I don't have to be strong. I don't have to be great for God to use me. I wonder what God can do with me if He can use a small boy's lunch. All I have to do is place my trust and my willingness to do His will. If God can use a boy's lunch to change 5,000 people to see the majesty in Him, I believe that He can use you and I. Our prayer should be this: help me, Father, to recognize the opportunities that you place before me and the courage to act to your purpose. If you're looking for your place in the world, and I believe that there's no better place to be than in the hands of Christ, we want to help you find that. That's the purpose of this time that we have together. If you have any questions or if you'd like to study, email me at Church of Christ Flagler, all one word, at gmail.com. Or come and visit us at the Church of Christ of Flagler County at 400 North State Street, Bunnell, Florida. May God bless you in your walk. May you make differences in people's lives. And thank you for joining us.
Above all powers, above all kings.